Welcome to I Married a Melchizedek, episode 9, where we talk about unity living and Melchizedek 8th dimensional magic with Hazel Davies, Headmaster Unity Living Facilitator, who shares invaluable information learned and experiences gained during her 18-plus year relationship with Jonathan C.R. Davies, her Melchizedek hubby. If you're unfamiliar with Unity Living and need to understand exactly who the Melchizedek are, I invite you to check out our new website at unityliving.life. Our previous website, unitybubble.com, will be up until June 15th, a very special day, and more about that coming up when we switch to the Unity Living platform exclusively. Of course, you'll still be able to contact all our amazing 37 facilitators from around the world through our site and benefit from a lot of new information now that's there. And on the here and now, I'm your host, Renata Duma. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified immediately when another episode of I Married a Melchizedek airs. Links to all I Married a Melchizedek shows will be listed on the unityliving.life website. And now, once again, without further ado, here's Hazel. Hazel, welcome to episode 9. Can you believe it?
No, actually, I can't believe it. That's quite incredible. Yes. Hi, Renata, and thank you so much for all the work that you have done to put the new website together. I know, huge job, and it's a beautiful website, and lots more to come from that.
Yes,
and also I would also like to thank the people who have reached out to me with some questions or some comments, and I'm very happy to clarify things or find something out or whatever. It's all about moving people forward, and the more that I can do that, then that's why I'm here.
So exactly. That's why we're all here, I think. Once we figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So last week we talked about the ego and its role in our lives and how we view it as we do the Unity Living work. I know you have a few more things to say about it, namely about the idea of giving one's ego a new job once the work is done and it's played out its initial role. Hazel Davies, Headmaster Unity Living Facilitator, your new title, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, while we're going through the Unity Living process with the 8 transmissions, the last things that are dealt with, one of the last 3 things that are dealt with is the misaligned ego. And I think there's a misunderstanding, or at least from our perspective, a misunderstanding of the job of the ego and how there's a lot of talk about get rid of the ego. You don't need your ego. The ego is bad, and all that. And we look at it from a different perspective, in that the ego is the creation that was created to keep us safe, because we have this physical body. Like the soul doesn't need an ego because it doesn't have a body to look after. And when we have the individuated essence, which I call Hazel, you call Renata, we need to have something that will guide us and stop us doing stupid things, because humanity tends to do silly things. And doesn't really, and doesn't sometimes know the consequences of that. So the ego's job, or its purpose, was to keep us safe. Now, what happened a couple of years ago, I had some clients that were saying, but now I've finished the program and my ego seems to be sad. It seems to have run out of things to tell me to do or not to do, because it's in alignment. So it's in connection with the soul. So I thought about this, and it's like, then I went back to Jonathan's book, his talk on the ego. And one of the things that he points out in that, and this was back in 2012 when he did that talk, It was the creation of a brand new being. So the joining together of the individuated essence of Hazel and the soul essence, making a new being that has never been created before with the physical body. So we thought about this and said, well, like, what do we do? What can we do with the ego? Because it's feeling a bit out of sorts, not in a bad, negative way, but in a what's my job now? So I did some research, if you like, and some connections. And back 2 years ago, actually, I looked up the date. I was given the idea, not the idea, but almost a blessing or a gift that there was a portal, a new portal or a gateway that could now be accessed. And this would give the ego the chance to graduate, if you will, graduate into a new way of being, totally in support of the personality self and the soul self. So basically and it made such a difference for a few people that I did this with at first. I thought, this is good. This is really different, but it's good. So I actually made a meditation which includes, first of all, an explanation a little bit about the ego. And I absolutely would encourage people to get the book, the ego, friend or foe. You can get it in a PD format. It gives a lot of information. And then, so I refer to that in the meditation, and then I draw people in, and if it feels right, if it resonates with an individual, they can go into the graduation of the ego from a new perspective. It's a very powerful meditation, and maybe you could put it as a link below this interview, Renata.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, it is very powerful. Guided meditation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's made a lot of difference, a big difference for a lot of people, taking that ego into a new way of being, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I think you said you wanted to read something from the book.
Well, right at the end of the book of Jonathan's, this was a spontaneous talk that I just said to Jonathan one day. Why don't you just talk about the ego? And an hour and a half later, and we had it recorded. So I know that was a really good talk, Jonathan. I should transcribe that. And that is this book is the result of that.
Something I did. So,
So how he describes it is the result is one egoic, individuated essence that perceives itself as separate and is able to focus and always able to choose and always must make the choice. To the soul who allows the exploration, who provides the life source and the stream and the continuous support for the exploration, these two great beings, when in alignment, coming together for an experience that currently is not even known, and how wonderful it will be. How did he know all this?
I do. Wow.
Anyway.
Never ceases to amaze. Never ceases to amaze. Wonderful. Well, I'll put a link to the video, of course, and I'll also put a link to the book because that is available as well. Yeah. And it's really a must read, especially if you've gone through the bubble process. I'll say that one or two last times before we transition. And so that's available to be shipped to you, and you can listen to the guided meditation for free on our website. Yeah. Anyway, I'll put those links up for sure. So last week, we also mentioned what Jonathan used to refer to as the big bad book, namely Messages from the Body by Michael Lincoln, PhD, who also goes by the title Narayan Singh. And just this week, one of my clients mentioned to me, which I'm extremely grateful for because I didn't know. I'm always grateful when people share something that I don't know. She said the Indian word Singh is actually derived from the Sanskrit Sinha, which means lion. and represents royalty, courage, and divinity, which makes total sense when we look at the contents of the book, which have clearly been channeled. So I'm sure he's been given this title as a homage to his to this work. So can you tell us more about Messages from the Body, as I know Jonathan deeply respected it and often referred to it while working with clients?
Yeah, the Book of Nasties.
Oh yeah, it's pretty nasty.
It's an incredible book. It's really a book that I suppose the most use is to be used by facilitators or therapists. It is a very interesting read, if you will, because you can find out all the underlying causes of every single ailment that you might have in your body. So we're talking the physical body. And sometimes it is the physical body that leads us into finding something out that we may not be able to understand from another way. So it's fascinating because say if I have a pain in my big toe on my left foot, I can look that up in the book and it will tell me why I have a pain in my left foot, in my toe. And it will give you the underlying cause. Now that's all well and good, and it's fascinating and it's interesting. The issue, or it's not really a problem, but the issue is, can you then do anything about it? So for regular people, and I had some questions like, would this be a good book for me to buy? Well, it gives you information. It gives you information why I have that pain in my left. I don't, but why I would have that pain in my left foot, big toe. But generally speaking, once you find out what the issue is, and of course these issues can go really, really deep. You know, I mean, I'm kind of joking about my left foot, but they can be, you know, much more serious complaints or dysfunctions or diseases, whatever you like to call them. Can you then do anything about it? And that would be the key point. Yes, it's interesting. I know why I had a heart attack. I know why, you know, I've developed this thing in my digestive system. I now know I have the clarity. Can you do anything about it? Generally speaking, unless one is really advanced, you really can't do anything about it yourself. So then it becomes to take it to your facilitator, your therapist, whoever it is that you're working with, who holds a higher frequency, who can then not explain it to you, but can negate those conditions that have caused the imbalance in the first place. So it is still a process. It's unusual for somebody to be able to read the book at something and say, oh yeah, oh, I've got that, and therefore then it's gone. No, it still takes work. So that would be my only reservation for if people are going to, you know, buy the books, basically for entertainment, really, in a way.
Yeah, it would be for entertainment, unless you can actually do the assisted processing of those things.
Yeah, I mean, they're amazing books, and I've used them, and Jonathan used them a lot, because it just, anything that can lead you into doing your own personal work. And sometimes the physical body or the dysfunction of that physical body is the way to go.
Absolutely. And in fact, I have found, actually, this was quite astounding. I was working with one person about 2 weeks ago, and they had several issues, physical issues, accidents, illnesses, etc. It was quite a hefty list. And they were pretty advanced in their life, and we're carrying this for quite some time. All of these messages, these cumulative messages. And what I found was absolutely fascinating, that I had zeroed in on the one thing that I thought was really the issue. And then every single subsequent issue that we read about in terms of had exactly the same paragraph, right?
And sometimes it doesn't have to be the whole paragraph. It can be a sentence or a half a sentence.
Exactly.
Something that resonates, and that's the use of it. And sometimes you need, somebody who is more advanced or advanced in a different way or has a different perspective, so that you can then get to clarity on what the real issue is.
Correct. Yeah. So a question, if there are facilitators watching who have not yet been introduced to messages from the body, which I doubt that they have not, because Jonathan, pretty much did that work with everyone. However, if they haven't, how can they contact us? And maybe we should think about doing a little talk about how the process is done using the book to help people release these issues.
Yes, that would be something very valuable to the for the facilitators that we can deal with.
Great. So it's down on my list of things to see. One of the next things that we can be offering on our Unity Living.life platform is these kinds of more expansive trainings. It isn't that the Unity process isn't solid on its own. It's just that these are extra little tools, right?
It always comes back to the Unity Living. I'm getting used to saying that now. I'm getting, it always comes back to that, because you have to have some platform that will provide the frequencies and the shifts that are available. It's one thing to collect a lot of information, and that's a head thing. I've got a book on this, another book on that, and all these books, and I know why this, that, and the other. It's all fine. Except that's not where the transmutation happens. That's not where the healing happens. It cannot happen from the head.
No.
So in a way, it kind of takes you away unless you know what you're doing, and then you can bring it into that heart space and make the changes, the energetic changes.
Exactly. You can't solve a 3D problem with another 3D thinking process, right?
No. Unfortunately not.
No, but that's why we're here. That's why we're all here to help, right? So following up on our series on the 8 different Unity Living transmissions or protocols, last week we explored the sacred garden and why it's such an important protocol. Today, let's talk about the real significance of the open heart and why it can be a bit tricky.
Yes, you see, the sacred garden is the halfway point, and it is the embodying place to get you prepared and ready for the other protocols, which go much deeper. So the first one of the 4 that are left is called the open heart, and this came about. It's really an extension of the breaking the bonds. It is a deeper level to the breaking the bonds. So the key word for the open heart would be balance. It is all about balance. So the initial reason for developing that protocol was the giving and the balancing of the giving and the receiving. So when, I was always taught when I was little, it's better to give than to receive. A lot of people are that. You shouldn't be greedy. You shouldn't be this. You shouldn't be that. You just give and you give and you give. Well, it's not exactly in balance, and you're going to run out. So what Jonathan told me, which I was quite devastated when he told me, because I said, I'm a giver. I'm not a receiver. I'm a giver. And he just looked at me with, his head on one side, and he said, that's a control issue. I was not too happy.
No,
I was not too happy. I thought I was doing a good job. I thought that was the way that I was supposed to be. But he pointed it out that when you only give, you are in control because somebody is always indebted to you. And I'm like, oh, really? So this is why it is the opening of the heart, which is the giving is from the front, the receiving is from the back side of the heart. And most people, I would say, maybe not most, but a lot, the heart is closed from the backside. So because it becomes, you become vulnerable. You become vulnerable to receive. It opens up. It opens up many other aspects, because you could be what's the word I'm looking for? You could be. I'm losing the word, so I'll just keep talking.
Okay, keep going. It'll come.
Okay. And so the giving. So it's the balancing of the back and the front of the heart, the giving and the receiving aspects. It's then it proceeded on to balancing out the right side and the left side of the body. The right side being the more, let's say, masculine or the denser side, the action side of the body, left brain, right side of the body. Okay, to the left side of the body, which is more the feminine, more the nurturing side, right brain, left side of the body. So we need them both. We need them both, but we need them in balance. And very often one is more predominant than the other. And that's okay to a certain degree, but there still should be an interaction and a balancing between those two sides. And then we also thought, well, why don't we just also balance the connection, which is connection upwards, and the grounding downwards? So we can do that at the same time. So it's like, well, this is good. Like, now we're getting somewhere. So now we have that to balance too. You can see why this transmission is very powerful.
It's a biggie.
And then again, then we get into balancing the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. So if one is constantly in fight, flight, or freeze mode,
right?
This is out of balance. We need it, but we don't need it to overtake. We need to also have the rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic. So, all these things will balance themselves out. If you, I work a lot with a figure eight, doing this in this particular transmission, because in a figure eight, that's, symbol of unity. If you draw the figure eight or hold the figure eight, either across your body or up and down or back and front, you can run the energies and they will balance themselves out. The overactive parts of the figure eight will then release, and the underactive parts will take on more energy. And if you just run the energy, but you have to know how to do that.
I see another training in your future. I see another training in your future.
Yeah. So it is the right and left hemispheres of the brain too, which comes in. So it's very far reaching. This, so you can see why sometimes it would be a little bit tricky. Sometimes, in one way more than another way, depending on the individual.
Yes. But definitely. It's not it's not just simple, my heart's open.
It's work. It is work.
No, it's a lot more than that. And the aspect that gets me is usually the when the back of the heart area is blocked, that's the lack of self-worth, right?
Yeah.
And when it does open and you're actually able to receive that whole paradigm that we've, this is the programming, the human programming that we're worthless, we're not good enough. We have to buy something else to be better, all of that tends to melt because it's like a symbiotic transformation, because once the back of the heart opens, then you have to be able to receive, and ergo you find, hey, yes, I am actually worthy of receiving, right?
Because it is an abundant universe, you see, and that was the beginning of that in the Breaking the Bonds. You know, we touch on that. We touch on the surface layers. You know, we get rid of a lot of the things that are stopping that, the restriction, which is the limitation, which opens it up to the abundant universe. The universe is abundant. It is our own issues that provide the blocks or create the blocks that we cannot receive. And people say, but I do all this, and I give all this, and I never receive anything. Well, it's only because you've got blocks there. So once we can figure out where the lack of self-worth is, where the fears are, all the lacks, and then they get dissolved, and as you say, that opens up the back, and it becomes, life starts to be a lot more pleasant.
It sure does. Well, because it's balanced, and then you can be in the now, and you can be an instant manifester. You can't do it if you're not in the now, and if you're chasing all of those feelings of lack of self-worth or all of those other umbrella issues as we talked about, right? So anyway, that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
That's the work. It is the work. You know, it always comes back to the work, no matter what one is doing. And can't get away from, well, you can get away from it, but you will create the reality that you are projecting out. And if it is a lack mentality, that's what you'll get back.
Exactly. Well, I tell people,
not, you know, rocket science.
Yeah,
you know, it's not rocket.
No, I tell people, well, you know what? You can do the work now or do it later, but you can
or not at all.
Yeah, well, eventually, I think because we all evolve. I mean, even if it isn't in this lifetime, right? You're going to do it eventually. So the suggestion is sooner rather than later, right?
Well, this is the place of experience. Earth is the place to experience duality. So
exactly,
that's why we're here, to have the experience. But it's also to figure out, you know, what is the alignment? What is it? Is this in alignment, or is this not in alignment?
And we'll get into that a little more next week, maybe, because that's a big subject, isn't it? It's a big subject. Yeah. So one more thing. Let's talk about one of the most important aspects of the Unity Living work, and that's the idea of releasing to one's divine unity field, or what we still lovingly refer to as our bubble. I've heard of some wacky ways people release, but I think, Hazel, you take the cake in that regard, given our conversation last week.
Yeah.
So we have our guided meditation on how exactly to release to the unity field. However, we both want to make it clear that there is more than one way to release. So we just offer one way so that our clients do release in order for the Unity Living process to work. But Hazel, over to you on releasing to the field. You've got some doozies.
Well, there's many different ways. It is only limited by your own limitation of how you would like to do that. You know, the bottom line is you just need to release. Now find a way to do that. And some people are, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll just, do my breath work, or I'll do my yoga, or I'll do my this or that. It's all fine. It's great. Whatever way it works. Some people have, particular images of a spiritual fire, and they chuck it into the fire and it gets released. Or another person put it into a football because it was something that she didn't like very much, and she just put it in the football and then give it a good old kick, and that's okay too. It's all fine as long as that is what you're doing. You have to be open to that releasing. And there are other people that, put it in the ocean and let the water, so using the elements, you can give it to whatever. Mm-hmm. So I did have one funny story, because I had a client, wonderful client, young, very, very creative. And he couldn't get it. He said, I just don't know how to do it. So I went through all the usual ways to release. And he said, I don't know, I just don't get it. So I'm like, what am I going to do here? So I said, well, if you could have something that you could give your issues when they come up for you, and you know what they are and you're willing to release them, if you could have something that you could give it to, what would that look like? So he thought for a bit and goes, He says, I know. I'd give it to my pet fox. I said, you give it to your pet fox? He said, yeah. I said, well, how does that work? He said, well, if I have a pet fox, it would just be by my side and it would be following me around. I mean, why it was a pet fox, not a dog, I have no idea. Doesn't matter. He said, so when an issue comes up, I could just kind of throw it at the pet fox and he'd just gobble it up. I said, great, wonderful. How perfect is that? So it's very individual, and it's all great.
Yeah, and the unity field will assist in each situation, right? It doesn't really matter.
Well, as long as you release it, the
right.
unity field or our bubble, as we used to say, it has no way of supporting something that is out of alignment.
Right.
So it is up to us. The bubble will not do it for you. It will not take it from you. It won't even tell you that it's a possibility to take it from you. It is up to us as individuals to say, I have this issue. I understand it, and I'm making a decision that I am going to release it. I am going to give it to the bubble or surrender it to that space. And that space has no way of supporting it. So it dissolves layer by layer, issue by issue. And that's why it works. That's
right.
Why. Right. I mean, it works in many ways, but that is the essence of the releasing to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's pivotal. It's pivotal in the process.
Yeah.
So big thank you to everyone who sent in questions. And like you mentioned to me, one of the questions you received was, is this work mainly for those starting out on their spiritual path?
Yeah, this was it was more of a comment that's just, this work is really for the ones new at doing spiritual work. And I thought, oh, well, no, it isn't. It is, but it's also for people who have done an awful lot of work. I've had many clients who have been working at their own personal mastery for years and years, and have come across this and decided that it resonated with them, and they have got huge benefit from doing it. So it's really for everyone, because this field connects with the soul of the individual. So whether they're at the beginning of their journey or they're 20 years down the road on their journey, it still connects to the soul. If there's a resonance, then there is work to do. If there's no resonance, then I say, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it to please me or anybody else, because it is going to bring up issues for you so that you can deal with them. But if you're not prepared to do that, then it's internal work. But it is for everyone. It doesn't. We used to have people that said, how advanced do I have to be before I can do this? That was actually the other way. I need to do an awful lot of work before I can take this on. I said, no. It just meets you where you are. It's and that would be a self-worth issue. I have to reach a certain level before I can take this on because I know it's so powerful. Yes, it is powerful, but it will never override you. It will never take advantage. It will never override. This is a perfect, it is a pure space coming from a place of unconditional love.
Yeah, and I encourage everyone to look at the new UnityLiving.life website. I put 6 weeks into researching and back and forthing with you, and really looking at that particular subject matter, because the process, as you say, it meets you where you are at. And anyone on this plane of existence, wherever we're at right now, somewhere between 3 and 5, you, because of sympathetic transference, and please look that up on the site. We'll talk more about it next week, next episode.
But it is also for I don't want to change the subject here, but just as a little tangent that we'll go into at some other point. But the unity bubble, as we call it, has also been used for those that have passed on, like lost souls, and many beings from other universes and other systems. We have our Melchizedek arena up in the ethers, where we have bubbled, let's just say that word again, bubbled many thousands, hundreds of thousands. That's a little aside, but absolutely. For those of us in body, yes, it's exactly. So just to finish what I was saying, but thank you for that, because yes, and that's something we should talk about, the universal Melchizedek arena as well, because I don't think we can count that high how many we have assisted in that venue. So what I was just trying to say was, no matter where you're at in your spiritual growth, in your journey, having the gift of an 8th dimensional energy field around you has to help, right? It has to facilitate something that's expansive. Yeah. Right. So whatever that means for you, whether it's just clearing trauma, moving ahead, or whether it's becoming the Christos, becoming the Christed one, that is the path of the unity living process. And it is perfectly individual. And as you say, it starts where you're at now, in the now. Yeah, exactly. So now, the fun part. The part we've been waiting for is a key feature of our show, and that's another Jonathan story. And once again, like last time, I don't know what this one is, so I'm going to be just as surprised as everyone in our audience. So Hazel, over to you. Yeah, this one is not like the other one. This was a particular experience that we had together. That really, even to this day, I still don't really understand. But okay, so we were in the motorhome, as a lot of our experiences were, and we were in southern Arizona, south of Phoenix. There's a lot of very, very open, desolate land there. It's close to the Mexican border. There's a lot of campgrounds that are run by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're free to stay in. You have to be self-sufficient, and we had a motorhome that we could live in for about 10 days if we were careful with our water and energies. So we would stay in many of these campgrounds, and we would meet all kinds of interesting people, because they were all kind of different. So we were driving down, and there's a place called WHY. It originally was just called Y, like the letter Y. Oh, okay. But apparently there was some regulation that it's an unregulated, it's not even a city. There's about not even 100 people there. But there was some regulation that it had to have 3 letters in its name, so they just put WHY. So we're driving along and we're going, what is this place? Why? And then we come across this sign, and it says, end of the earth, 20 miles. Why? 30 miles.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to tell me that the previous name was what, but they changed it to why.
So that's just to tell you where we were. We're around why. So you can already tell it's a different kind of place.
Okay.
So we find the campground and we park there, and everything's fine. And Jonathan is, as is his habit, he would get up very early in the morning and go for a walk, and then come back and we'd have coffee together. So this one morning he said, "I've got something to show you, but you can't look." I'm going, okay. So he led me out into the wilds, and it's really wild there. There's nothing there. There's a few cacti and that, and there's nothing else there. Very, very dry desert. And there's a lot of what they call arroyos, which are dips. They're ditches, that when it does rain there, you get a lot of flash floods, and the water is so hot. It doesn't absorb into the ground. Anyway, so we're walking along, and then he says, "Okay, now close your eyes." So I closed my eyes, and he led me. He just led me, and then he said, "Okay, now open them." And right in front of me, in this arroyo, was the most beautiful miniature village made out of quartz. And it was the perfect replica of a real village. I'm talking miniature like 2 or 3 inches, not miniature. Yeah. And I couldn't believe my eyes, because it had roadways, it had a church, it had houses, it had like what would be crops growing in fields. It was the most magical thing I've ever seen. And
how big was it? How big was it in diameter?
It was probably about 3 or 4 feet long and about 2 feet wide. It was a size. It was so meticulous, every single little detail. We just, my eyes were just coming out on stalks, and I said, "Wow, how does this happen?" He said, "I don't know, but isn't it so beautiful?" And he said, I think it's for the little people." Little people meaning elementals.
Oh.
But I think it's there. It's for them, so that they can. I don't know. We had a camera with us, but you know what? It just didn't feel right to take any kind of picture. It was such a special thing. We don't know if it had just been made overnight. We don't know. We don't know if it would be because it was in an arroyo. So if there was any rain, it would have destroyed it. I have no idea. To this day, I don't know. But it was a very special moment.
Wow.
Whether that's anything to do with being a Melchizedek or not, I have no idea. But it was very special.
Well, I think just being attracted to that, finding it. And yeah, who knows if it's, maybe you were in a slightly different dimension, because, there's little portals everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'm sort of seeing that it's probably a very special area, and probably has something to do with elementals. But I'm also seeing that there's some sort of portal active there. So they come in. Oh, yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying.
We didn't ever go back, and we didn't tell anybody else about it, because you just don't.
Well, there you go. Another exclusive on I Married a Melchizedek. So one last thing. I know I've said that like 3 times today, haven't I? June 15th.
Oh, yeah.
Just want to share with the audience, as I was launching the new Unity Living website around June the 8th, just a few days ago, it just popped into my head, because we've got a membership area, etc., that we're offering our facilitators now, etc. It just popped into my head that the launch date should be June 15th. And I was like, yeah, it sounds like a good day. And I fired Hazel off an email, right? I fired you off an email. Next thing I know, I get a phone call. You want to tell us about it? You
Well,
said,
June
why did you choose June 15th?
Yeah, I said, June 15th sounds great. Why did you choose that? I said, you know that's Jonathan's birthday. No, she didn't. But I guess you did.
Anyway, I think he's very happy. That was a sign to me that, if that's the go day, then he's okay with it. So, and yeah, I was just bowled over because I had no. I do not remember my own birthday. I am horrible at birthday. My family can tell you. I remember sometimes mine. I definitely remember my daughter's, but anybody else, forget it. Hopeless. So that was not conscious by any means. So June 15th is the day. So happy birthday to Jonathan. We're going to be publishing this episode on June 14th. So a very happy birthday to Jonathan. So what did you guys normally do on, what do you still do? Do you still celebrate?
No, not much. Not much. Just just have a nice day. That's all. Nothing really special.
Well, you're building a nice memorial garden for Jonathan, aren't you?
Yes, I am. It's doing very well. He's happy.
Excellent. Well, maybe at some point you can shoot me a picture and we can.
I will let the plants fill out a little bit more.
Okay, perfect. By the end of the summer, then we'll have a beautiful photograph of Jonathan's commemorative garden to share with you.
Yeah, great.
So I see we're once again getting close to the end of today's showtime. But before we sign off, I wanted to mention the fact that another archived video of Jonathan's has surfaced. And I'll be putting it up on my Rada Lightwork YouTube channel alongside all of the I Married a Melchizedek episodes. Curiously, it's all about releasing to the bubble. And there are no coincidences there. So I'll put a link in the description below, but you'll be able to see it easily on my YouTube channel. So tune in again with Hazel and myself in 2 Tuesdays on I Married a Melchizedek, when we not only get to learn more about the life of a great being, Jonathan C.R. Davies, and the vast and vital legacy he left behind, and Hazel's brilliant recollections thereof. We'll also explore more about the UNITY Living transmissions and how they assist individuals in the most profound ways imaginable. Once again, I'm your host, Renata Duma, or Rada, wishing you brilliant days ahead in the full flow of all creation, full of joy, health, true abundance, and positive outcomes from lots and lots of manifestation. Hazel, thank you for yet another wonderful show, episode 9.
Thank you. Thank you, Renata. Great.
As always, with much love from Hazel and I to you, till we meet again on the next wise and equally whimsical episode of I Married a Melchizedek. See you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.